Let's take that conversation forward about footwear and accessories. May I now invite on stage a really large panel, so you're going to get a whole really spectrum of points of view now. May I call on stage Adarsh Gupta, promoter and director, Hello 10, Brajesh Rawat, who's head of category at Exclusively, Dr. Sanyogita Chadda, part of the Pearl Academy again, Inderdev Singh Musafir, who's part of M&B Footwear, basically brands like Lee Cooper and Provoke. Ishan Sachdeva, who's director Alberto Torresi. Jean-Marc Pettiboy as well, who's going to be part of this conversation. Mohini Binepal, who's part of Roche. Nissan Joseph, who's part of Crocs India. Rafiq Malik of Metro Shoes. Sonita Unadkat, who's part of Urban Shore London. Swarndeep Singh, who's part of and the MD of Logic ERP Solutions. Yasho Gupta, who's part of the Torero Corp, global licensee of brands like Cross, Police, Cosmopolitan, and of course, intertwining that conversation is Vikas Bagga. He's been driving growth and strategy for top Indian and international brands for 20 plus years. I did a head count. We now have 12 people on stage. It's almost equal to the audience. So it's going to be a long and detailed conversation, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions after that. Over to you.
So good evening to all of you. And the good news is that we're not too many. I must start by complimenting the entire team of ISAF, which is this brilliant job of bringing all the luminaries on the stage. And thank you, wonderful audience. I'm sure it's going to be a great session for all of us. Let me just set the context for the discussion. The larger agenda of this year's ISF was fashioning the fastest changing consumer market in India. Now, just to put a context, let me just share some data points. And then we'll try to join the dots. Well, India is the second largest manufacturer of footwear in India, in the globe. We make some 2 million pairs per year as against the overall capacity production of 16 million pairs per year. Number two, which is quite a variant data point, which is that fashion commands a 30% share of the organized retail in India. Data point three, footwear provides 1.8 million population as a direct source of income and employment, and another 2 million get employed indirectly through this industry. Data point number four, in terms of FDI, now that's the key point, and we're going to discuss about it a little later also. China attracts a phenomenal FDI of $3 trillion per year, whereas India is 229 billion. So there's a great scope for us to do a lot of things there. So the target for the domestic footwear market in India is from the current 2 billion to 5 billion, which requires an additional investment of 227 US million. The overall size of the footwear market, interestingly, is about 30,000 crores, but we all know increasingly that it's always been a set of industry which has been highly unorganized. The share of the unorganized sector has been very, very high, but still there is an estimated value of 10,000 crores of organized share coming from the structured industry. Importantly, one more data point I'm sure it's going to be everybody's liking, our population, 1.3 billion. The problem is, every time you quote this population of 1.3 billion strong population that we have, the brands operating in the luxury segment start estimating the size of the market in a very, very different tangent. So obviously, one will have to take a realistic view also going forward, because again, it's an era of collaborations, it's an era of positioning, it's an era of segmentation. So one needs to be quite sorted on that. Now, the other interesting thing is that there's a lot of news in the air about Make in India, Digital India, and coincidentally, just 3 days back, we had the IMF chairperson coming to Delhi for a summit, and she made a wonderful comment that India is the sole bright point in the overall very gloomy global situation. She had her own reasons to say that, one of that being that there is a huge component of the youth population workforce. There's a lot of transition happening towards transformation, and importantly, there's a lot of reforms happening. So that's the typical background in terms of what we've been hearing all this while. But just let me now, having shared this context, ask the panel to share their views. So my first question is going to be, prompt is going to be to Sonita. So Sonita is somebody who's been operating out of UK and Europe largely all these years. And Sonita, in your own view and your own experience, is the overseas sector really kind of rocking or it's rocking? What exactly is happening in the overseas sector? Please share your perspective.
Thanks, Vikas. I think for me, if I look at FitFlop as a business, globally, it's going from strength to strength. So it's now in over 80 countries. I think the business is growing. Percentage share of the market is increasing for the brand. The number of technologies that they're bringing to market is growing. So I think that is representative of the fact that actually globally, the footwear industry is doing well. I think in India, we're facing a number of challenges. One of them actually being the fact that India is the second largest manufacturer of footwear, means that there are a number of people, factories, that are making counterfeits and copies. So that for us is being a challenge, whereas across the world, that's not the case. So coming to India with something that is a luxury product, we're facing a number of issues. So what is as a plus side, the fact that India is the second largest manufacturer is actually unfortunately working against us in launching and growing the business over here. But for us, for FitFlop as a brand, I think we're going from strength to strength globally, and I think that's reflective of the footwear industry overall.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So Mr. Nissan, you being somebody who's been leading a fashion brand of global repute, the brand itself being available across so many countries in the globe. So what does your sense say in terms of what's happening overseas versus what's happening in India? Is there a lot of buzz about India overseas? And how's the overall overseas sector reacting at this point of time on the retail side?
Well, I think globally there's a lot of headwinds going on. You know, Japan's going through a crisis. China has a small implosion. You have the oil crisis that has its own domino effect on many, many countries and many, many economies. Having said that, though, we share the same opinion as FitFlop that the market is growing. It's growing because penetration is increasing into markets that were under-penetrated. India is a great example. I think India is also growing, but there's a lot of markets where brands were not penetrated. And today what we're seeing is a consolidation of the players and a move and shift towards the brand in the premium to the upper premium sector. So you're seeing the growth come out of penetration, you're seeing the growth come out of expansion, and that I think is hiding some of the headwinds that exist in the world today. But there are some significant headwinds going on in various geographies that I think are being masked for us, fortunately, in the footwear business.
But globally, the kind of trend that you see, I mean, the shift or the share between, let's say, metro town versus tier 2, tier 3 towns. So that kind of shift and that kind of penetration is something that you see in India also when it comes to brand like Crocs that you handle?
I'm sorry, because I missed some of that. The speakers are facing that way. So.
Okay. So all I'm trying to ask is that the whole breakups or the shares that the international market has between a metro city vis-a-vis tier 2 and tier 3 towns, do you see those kind of trends here in India also in terms of the breakups and the penetration?
Right. And, you know, even in the US, for example, there was a polarization happening where the metros were getting more dense and the rurals were dying down, and there was a big shift happening. And that's where you saw now that the brands were able to speak to their consumers and romance their consumers and have a good business. Of course, we're seeing urbanization in India at a growth rate of roughly 3% every year. That's going to continue. 3% of 1 billion, too, is a lot of people. So that is going to continue. That's going to create velocity. I think India continues to be the shining star. And the beautiful part about India is we just still have not hit our true growth stride. You know, if you look at our growth, it's been 6s and 7s, and that's not bad, mind you. But I think there's a hockey stick curve coming at the end of this, and we haven't hit that stride yet. And when that happens, and I think that's what all the brands are waiting for, and coming in and investing and looking at the long term. And the brands that come in for the short term, Vikas, don't survive here. The ones that have a long-term view, understand they need to invest in the market and be ready when the hockey stick curve happens, those are the brands that are going to be successful in India.
All right. So that's great about hockey stick. We've learned some new tricks. Ishan, someone like you who's been managing a fairly new brand in the Indian context, and it's really made it big in the last 5 odd years, I'm sure you take a lot of inspiration from the trends that you study, which happen to be there in the overseas sector. So what are the challenges and opportunities that you see in the overseas sector And what are those that could be replicated here in the Indian context also?
So the overseas, the market is pretty much much more organized. It's more mature. But in India, the market will take a little more time to mature a bit. The biggest difference which India has from overseas is that the amount of variability we have, it's immense. It's not just in terms of it's not just in terms of area. It's also in terms of people, the religion, the colors, the preferences. Everybody, India is like a snapshot of the world. So the entire world is there, and then this small passport size photo of the entire world is India. So no one strategy from overseas would work, perfectly here. But of course, we can have a lot of elements like omni-channel retail, which is definitely going to be, the much more talked about point in the future, and which is going to be where the Indian retail is going to head.
All right. So Mohini, in your own capacity as someone who's leading, again, a fairly new brand, which is Rouge, what is it that you would have studied from the overseas markets, and what was your inspiration for you to do what you're doing so very successfully here in India?
So before coming here, we were all doing a little research, at least I was, and we read up on the latest growth percentages across in the world, in the global economy, and in India. And one of the stats, I think, which is a simple enough stat that everyone knows, but we'll repeat it, that the global economy is growing currently at 2.8% per annum. India is growing at an average of about 6.6, 6.8%. The retail industry is growing at 15% per annum. And the growth of the premium retail industry is at 24% per annum. So I think if you have to really see the potential of India today in terms of mid-premium, premium brand, I think the data is absolutely self-explanatory. Coming to what we have taken from the global market and try to incorporate here, I think the first thing I'm going to speak about is consumer behavior. I think that's one thing that I would give my team credit for, that one of the things that we did was we challenged the status quo in the market a little bit. We said that just because things are done in a certain way doesn't mean that there is not an opportunity to evaluate different. And not at all times something different succeeds. But I think if the grounding of something is based on consumer behavior, it works, which is why in the store is actually built on categories. We have 10 different subcategories, basis different occasions and buying behavior of customers. We actually commissioned a research in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, which we did before we started even the first store. Usually research comes into the life cycle of an organization after they've been around for 2-3 years. Before we started, we did research there. So I think the consumer behavior element of it for us was very important, which is also important internationally. I think the second thing that we borrowed, and borrowed is not the right word, but we thought was applicable in India also, was experience. So you're familiar with Rouge, you know that the two pillars that we stand on is product and experience. Both of them are equally important, so much so that I'll give you a reference of how important they are. In our own stores, if our sales team achieves their revenue targets, if they don't happen to meet the mystery order targets, they don't get the incentive. So it's not a also second ran, also ran. It's equally important for us. So I think these are two things that we've taken from the international market, which is equally important there. What is in India, I think I'll go with what Ishan said, that I think the differences between various regions is fairly high. So it's taken us a little bit of time, and I don't think we've still perfected it, that we're still trying to understand what is the ideal merchandise mix for the different regions that we operate in. And not only regions, we have some very important partners in each of these regions. Sometimes we notice that there's a difference in consumer preferences for our partners also. So we've not perfected that, we're still working on it.
So that's a lot of insights which have gone into the success story that we've seen over the recent years. So Yash, a quickie from you, a bird's eye view. I mean, you are somebody who dabbles with the licensing business, and your portfolio is quite impressive. So from a bird's eye perspective, what is it that when you look at the Indian market, what could be the key takeaways for you, and what could be your focus area?
Thanks, Vikas. Just a heads up, everyone. I'm Yash from Torero. We represent the brands Cross, Pulis, and Cosmopolitan globally. So, Vikas, that's a great question actually, and this is something, it's a topic which is very close to our heart. I kind of just wanted to touch upon a few kind of trends, which was what we've seen globally, and we feel it is time that they sort of filter down to India. One trend that we've sort of seen globally is that fashion or fast fashion is universal now. And this is something that India really needs to learn. All brands have learned from Zara and H&M, and they started learning 10 years ago, or 5 years ago in H&M's case. So there is no brand out there which isn't fast fashion amenable. Brands are very, very nimble, very flexible. WGSN did a great presentation. Many brands, such as ourselves, we are harnessing the power of technology, such as with WGSN's tools or other homegrown tools. But brands do not have the option of not being aware of the latest trends anymore. So this is something that we've seen. We are very fortunate that our global creative director, I think she's somewhere in the audience, Giovanna Villani, she came in from Tod's and Moscow and really has built a culture of really being fast fashion amenable. So this is one key trend we are seeing. The second big trend that we're seeing is that life cycle of brands are becoming shorter and shorter. You have a lot of fad brands out there, so the risks of a brand life being short is quite high. I mean, no offense to, say, Arvind brands, for example, but brands such as Ed Hardy and others, they've notably had very short lives. Even brands such as Superdry tend to have short lives. So these are potential risks which can exist with certain class of brands, and one needs to be aware of what kind of brand they're building and what are the potential risks attached. The third, which I feel is an opportunity, is that accessories and shoes have been on the rise, and Mohini talked about some research, and I completely agree from that perspective. For example, the Bain Luxury Report talks about the shoes and accessories category growing at 16% for multiple reasons. Maybe accessories are easier to shop. In shoes, what we've particularly seen is that consumers have traditionally had access to formal or sports shoes. Now everyone is wearing casual shoes, etc. So, and people are accessorizing their look even more. The taglines that an outfit isn't complete without the right pair of shoes. So these kind of concepts are coming. So this is a major trend that we're seeing globally, that shoes and accessories is on the rise. We have not seen that in India as much as we would have liked to see, and considering many among the panel are in the shoe industry, we hope this happens soon. So these are the three key trends I would like to share.
Thank you, Yash. Thank you so much. You always made sure that I don't come back to you again. But any which ways, Mr. Rafiq Malik, the absolute pioneer in the footwear industry and the footwear retail, so there have been so many changes that you've seen over your lifespan and your career. Of course, running a very successful chain thus far, and I'm sure it's going to continue those ways. And there's so much happening that's happening internationally. But in your own experience and understanding, has India finally arrived on the fashion scene in terms of both retail as a sector and fashion as a category? What's your understanding on it, sir?
I think you cannot talk about India as one. There are the metro cities that move at a different pace, the tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities. So different parts of India are rapidly changing at a different pace. So it's a complex country, it's a diverse country, and you don't see a singular movement. But I think India has adapted and has taken a lot from outside, but it has eventually, within its own borders, evolved a vibrant kind of its own intrinsic fashion, which is very unique to it. So I think they've taken trends from the West, they've taken the ethnic wear from India, a lot of our cultural traditions, and have evolved a very unique blend of fashion that is unique to the country. In fact, some of the fashion that we have seen here are being adopted by the West. So there's a trend in the cities, it's quite different, in tier 2s it's different. But I would say that India is definitely moving. Whether you would call aping the West has arrived, I don't think so. I think we've developed our own trend of fashion, which is quite unique, and I think we should be proud of it.
My next prompt would be to Mr. Gupta. Yeah. Now, here is the case where you have a lot of successful brands here in India, made in India brands. A lot of international brands who already made their headway. A lot of retail chains, successful ones. A lot of new ones getting into retail chain. And you've come up with a wonderful concept in terms of Hello 10 being an exciting proposition for the investors, and for the retailers. So what is it that really inspired you to get into something which you call as a very unique concept?
You see, objective of every business is to make money. And when the interest rates are, say, 12 to 15%, the business should earn at least 18 to 24% profit. But if you look at the present scenario and the trends of the last 5 years, most of the people in the footwear trade, whether manufacturers or distributors or retailers, are not making handsome profits. So the return on investment is maybe less than 12%, in my view. Some companies may be exception. What we have realized is that every business can only be successful when all people associated with the business, whether vendors or maybe our distributors or retailers, makes money. So it has always been a pain to hear from retailers or distributors that because of so many reasons, their business is not earning the money probably they expect to earn. And in the present scenario, if you look at probably model of Uber, which is providing taxi service to the customer, probably they have improved the efficiencies with the help of technology. An average car, an average meter taxi in India before Uber or Ola came in used to run about 80 to 100 kilometers every day, giving revenue of, say, at the rate of about 25 to 30 rupees a kilometer. And with the help of technology, Uber and Ola, the same car is doing about 300 kilometers and earning 3 times the revenue to the taxi operator. And the operator is owner of his business, and he is free to drive the number of hours from 18 to 24 hours or less. If he wants to take weekly off, he can do that. So in the process, both Uber is also earning and the taxi operator is also earning. And if you look at the consumer, he has got a choice, he has got a convenience, and the car is available at his doorstep in few seconds. So that inspires us to look at a business model where probably we can utilize the underutilized assets. And in my view, probably there are about 200,000 footwear multi-brand outlets all across India. Any outlet which is not doing 50 lakhs rupees annually is a losing proposition. Though most of the retailers do not understand because they do not take into consideration their own cost or the retail space cost and probably the other cost which they consider as a family cost. So they do not put it on business, but most of them are losing money. They consider cash flow as their profit, which actually is not. So in our view, probably if this situation continues for next 2-3 years, many retailers will go out of business, and especially because of e-commerce posing new threats where probably the products are available at huge discounts, which has been the practice in the last 2 years, retailers are going to have tough time. So in this scenario, probably we have come out with a model which is probably technology driven like Uber and taking clue from Indian cinema, which probably at one point in time in beginning of 90s was almost died. When PVR came in, probably that was incarnation of cinema business. So what has happened in the last 15, 20 years, the ticket of cinema balcony, which was 20 rupees at some point in time in mid-90s, has today reached a level of minimum 500 rupees. But yes, the tickets are available at 2,000 rupees also. So what has changed? The contents has remained the same, but the experience has completely changed. Customer is willing to pay any price for the experience. So service is adding a lot of value to any product. Most of the brands are promoting their business and they always propose something, promises made by the brand. But when the delivery happens at retail outlets, there's no company, especially in India or maybe anywhere in the world, who have owned the brand but making any promise as far as service is concerned. So we see a huge gap from customer point of view as far as customer expectation is concerned. And if you look at probably the cinema, the same contents are being sold at a much higher price. And what has changed? Probably the cinemas, the whole ambience has changed, the whole look and feel of the cinema hall has changed, the technology has changed, the quality of picture, quality of sound, seats have become bigger, seats have become comfortable, tickets can be purchased online, You can plan in advance to go to any cinema. And if it is a multiplex, you have a choice of maybe 8 or 10 screens, so you can choose whatever you like. So similarly, Hello 10 model is inspired from the success or the evolution of cinema, as well as probably the technology-driven business of taxi.
Thank you so much. My next prompt is going to be to Mr. Musafir. So you've seen 20 plus years of success stories in terms of nurturing a licensee brand, multinational brand, own set of brands, been there, done that, retail, just about everything. And you, somebody who's been watching and looking at the landscape very, very closely, the retail landscape, the fashion landscape. Now, what is it that's really enabled you and the entire company to really hold on to the market? Is the customer insights? Is a very strong hold on the channel partners, your collaboration with the channel partners, a lot of IT that you really put in the organization, huge amount of marketing efforts, or all of that? So, I mean, what's been your experience and understanding?
I think what we've done is build relationships. Over the period of the 20 odd years plus that we've been in the market, handling international and national brands. It's all about, in India, it's about relationship. It's about how, you build a relationship with the channel partners, with the retailers, with the, India is a vast country, and I think there are multiple countries within a country. So to understand the nuisances of that and to really be able to paint the whole thing with a single brush is not possible. So everywhere that you go, you need to understand the market, the products that you put into the market. We were listening to a session earlier today where they talked about seasonality. There's autumn, winter, and spring, summer. There's nothing like that in India. I think in India is led by the fashion in India, or the market, or the sales opportunities are led by various things about the festivals of different states, the cultural differences. So what we've done is we've picked up partners throughout India which are local partners, and we worked with them to give solutions which are local solutions. And everything, whether it is an international brand, whether it's an Indian brand, unless you understand the landscape of India, unless you understand how the relationship building happens in India. Even today, the success of metro shoes is due to the fact that you go into a metro shoe and the manager over there will probably address you by your name. So that's what we Indians are used to. And I think that's an experience of India that is very different than anywhere else in the world. And any brand, whether it is international or whatever, when they come into India, they somehow need to understand this and package their things according to the challenges which are there on ground in India. And which is what we've done over these 2 decades. And that's what has really kept us going, to be honest.
So that's consistency at its best. So Brajesh, my next query is going to be you. Brajesh, you are the only one on the panel who's into pure play online spectrum among all the panelists. And it's, it's quite common to hear these days that the entire market is evolving. The ecosystem is evolving. The online is evolving. We're all learning. You into an online space which is exclusive, curated collections, premium. What kind of scope and what kind of growth do you really anticipate in the Indian ecosystem with that kind of venture that you're heading?
Growth per se, when we're talking about, the entire market is growing, whether it's online or offline. Courtesy of online, accessibility to a customer is very high now. Not only within the India, I am seeing from tier 2 cities, I've been hearing and talking to customer when they say, hey, I am buying from Macy's or I am buying from ASOS and they are delivering to my hometown. So probably that is the only thing we are able to access to a lot of customers. That is the one thing which we are seeing it. And growth per se, yes, traction is high. People are seeing this. That's what I think.
Okay. So Dr. Sanyogita, you represent the academic part of it, and you heading the design cell at Pearl across several centers. Now, one of the pain points for the industry all these years has been design. We know we have abundant raw material. We have 10% of the overall cattle population in the country, so good amount of leather. There are FDDIs, there are NFTs, no doubt about that as well. Abundant labor also. But be it exports or be it domestic sector, design per se comes for a lot of reckoning. So what's really happening at the student front, so, in terms of their training and their practical orientation, so they serve as real true assets for the industry as and when they really graduate? What are the key steps that are happening?
Okay. Hi, Vikas. I think most of the design schools cater to fashion design, and that's actually apparel design. Because I think that is probably the biggest thing happening today. Fashion has become a big thing in India today. I don't think footwear and accessories actually hit that mark as yet, but I think gradually it's becoming a bigger part of our wardrobe. I mean, people buy clothes and they want to buy accessories to go with it. When there's a demand, when the industry starts looking for talent, that is when I think education institutions come into play, and then we kind of plan courses. So as Pearl Academy, we have been talking about footwear design for some time. And we have never actually probably met the industry people to understand what kind of people they need. But I think now that the industry itself is clamoring for talent, I think the education institutions will get into action and have courses which also address footwear and accessory, fashion, footwear and fashion accessories. Most of the footwear courses have been very technical courses, leather, dealing mainly in leather footwear. Whereas fashion has changed and footwear has become extremely interesting, very exciting. I mean, Crocs has changed the way you look at casual wear. Sneakers have changed. You look at the wide variety of slippers and sandals that are available all over. I think there's a huge explosion in footwear as a fashion statement. It is not something which is just a utilitarian product anymore. And I think because it's becoming a fashion statement, I think the need for, or the interest for students to want to study footwear design will obviously come in. I don't think anybody wants to study just leather design for footwear. We want to do fashion. So I think would be something that education institutions would be looking at in the very near future to kind of introduce courses which are geared to the fashion industry for footwear and accessories.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about design. Mr. Peduboy is here, and he gave an extensive PPT earlier on. Now, you really find a lot of gaps as far as your kind of work is concerned. In terms of 3D, you are an expert on 3D designing. So you really find a lot of gaps here in the Indian market vis-a-vis what's prevalent overseas? You really find a lot of gaps?
There are gaps, yes and no, because, for example, we were lucky to sell our software to VKC, and we found some very talented people. I can tell you, Gabor, we tried to sell the system to Gabor. After 3 days of intensive benchmark, one guy, because probably make too much money, they decided, no, I don't need that. So the market is global, but I would imagine the attitude is also global, So no, my feeling is here, there is such a huge potential. I was talking earlier about mass customization, and India should be the country for mass customization.
Thank you so much. My last question on this particular round is to Mr. Swarandeep Singh. He's the one who represents IT, and IT is the one who provides IT solutions to the retail and manufacturing sector. I understand you hold very strong views on omni-channel and also about providing technology layers to the overall fashion segment and fashion sector. Your thoughts, sir?
Let's talk about, this is actually the buzzword, the omni-channel in the retail industry. See, first we look into, say, like, when the shopper doesn't have the choice, say, like, he'll go to the brick and mortar stores, that is the single channel. Then the technology evolved, then the e-commerce came and the mobile and etc. So what retailer did, he handled every channel independently. So everywhere is the database is different. For mobile is different because screen size is different. Tab is different. Then your e-commerce site is different. So there is a huge, say, like, your resources are on the toss, and disconnect was there. Because on the every channel, so the person is treated, say, like the shopper is treated differently. So the disconnect was there. So to gap that, say, to fill that gap, so you need the omni-channel. Now what is the omni-channel? So where your single source information is catering to all the channels. So whether it is a mobile, whether it is your e-com, or whether yours is brick and mortar stores, so everything is connected. So shopper is buying from the store, or from your mobile app, or from the e-commerce. It is the same. Like wherever he's buying, he's getting the same experience, same kind of the product information he's getting it. So wherever the person is addressing, so the one CRM, say like we are talking about a single database. Single database means there is a one CRM, he's buying from the store, So his points are added in the same. He's buying from the mobile, his points are added. So everywhere he's say, like getting the personalized services, right? So the inventory is totally visible, whether they're the warehouses, whether there is the stores, or anything e-commerce, say like everywhere it's accessible. So now this is say like where the customer, today's customer is very, very say demanding. So that's why, so there the omni-channel is filling that gap and they are getting the services from that one. Say otherwise in the retail industry, the people who are not into the omni-channel, it's hard to survive. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me now shift the focus of the discussion to the all-time favorite discussion on the Make in India. So there's a discussion and buzz on Make in India. There is Digital India that we're talking about. There's also a lot of buzz on the 100 smart cities that are happening, but what's happening at the ground zero? That is something that needs to be assessed by the industry captains. There's several perspectives to Digital India and Make in India in terms of giving a lot of impetus, just not to the footwear sector, but manufacturing sector in toto, because of the resources that we have here in India. So before I get the pure Indian perspective, let me just ask Sonita one more time. This Make in India buzz, when they're overseas and when you hear about all this, does it really make you comfortable? Does it really make you buoyant about India? And you really think that a lot of change is going to be happening at ground zero here in India?
Sorry, because I missed that. Does it make me what, sorry?
Does it make any wave? Is it making any buzz overseas when you hear about Make in India?
I think the Make in India program is actually quite interesting because I think India has a number of fashion-led designs that can be spoken about, which are regional. I think what Make in India, when I look at footwear, what Make in India doesn't have, in my humble opinion, is it doesn't necessarily have the technology. So when I think about the FitFlop that we represent in India, it has a micro wobble board technology. We have a dual technology now. And I think those technologies we don't necessarily have available here in India. What India can help with, and I think what India can actually almost lead the way in, is what they do with the uppers. So the leathers, the sequins, the embellishments. So I think that is something that is quite exciting. But the actual technology side of it, I'm not sure that India's quite there yet.
Mr. Malik, again, Make in India is making a lot of buzz, and the government really wants a lot of focus on the manufacturing, footwear of course being one part of it. And you, somebody who's been very vocal along with some other panelists in terms of reaching out to the government and the Commerce Ministry in terms of securing some very, very key incentives for the country. So you really think all of that is really going to be getting actualized now with Make in India really taking a shape? You think those things are going to be addressed now?
See, what the government needs to create is really an enabling environment for Make in India to happen. You have raw material availability, but today the synthetics that are available all over the world. You have labor here, but productivity may be low. So unless the government creates an enabling environment, that is going to be the spark that really ignites Make in India. Just talking about it or just taking numbers that we have this, we have that, is the enabling environment, the infrastructure, the taxation, the labor laws. All this is what is going to be important to make the Indian manufacturing industry competitive and invest in technology to upgrade itself. So I think we've begun there, we've started a journey. I think the government should really take it ahead and make sure all the components are in place to make this Make in India initiative successful.
There's also a lot of need of course, optimal utilization of resources and partnership between government and the private sector. But one of the pain points which has been there for the industry all these years, and if I can ask Mr. Musafir to answer that, has been the inordinate high excise duties, which really been balking the industry quite a bit across the country. In some ways, one can say it's also a dampener to the footwear industry in terms of what it stands for in the Make in India initiative. That with the GST really getting perennially delayed. So how do you think these commercial aspects, if addressed, can really make a lot of change? So is an excise duty, lowering of excise duty and GST going to be really a game changer when it comes to Make in India program?
So let's first appreciate that there's finally a government that's talking about an industrial revolution. Because what's happened is, a country of 1.3 billion people, the only way we can actually feed them is through an industrial revolution. So though we've come across knowledge revolutions, IT revolution, telecommunication revolution and all that, there hasn't been any initiative in the past to really boost the manufacturing in India, which is the good part that the government is actually thinking about it. The real thing is that they don't have a program in place as yet. We've been doing some road shows on behalf of the government in various countries, and the question really asked is that why should I come to India to manufacture? I mean, there is no incentivization of putting together a program, or for that matter, learning from a China example to put together areas or technology parks or industrial parks that can, create that environment like what Rafiq Saab said, to fuel the manufacturing process. Or for that matter, touching on the taxation part, there's so much of disparity as far as taxation is concerned, especially in terms of footwear. And, I've been part of this movement since many years to try and explain to the government, or really ask that question, that why is footwear treated differently when it comes to taxation, or why is footwear taxed at the highest level of taxation in India, whereas this is the industry that eventually will be providing employment to the weaker sections, or to the masses of India, or to the unskilled workers. So there is no answer from the government to these things, and they're making this noise about Make in India. So I think that whole thing needs to be put together, where we can showcase to the world that India can be a manufacturer to the world. There are obviously all these agitations going on. What we project through media is not a very encouraging situation. So therefore, we have to really create a reason for people, or for that matter, foreign companies, to even start thinking about taking India as a serious manufacturing hub, so to speak of. We ourselves as manufacturers are looking outwards. People on this panel and in the audience, there will be several manufacturers who are actually talking about shutting their manufacturing units over here and going into countries like China, Vietnam, or other places. So the government really needs to speak to us that first let's address the issues that we have and create that environment to be able to then go and market ourselves in the world to say that come and manufacture in India.
Okay. So Ishan, typically in the footwear context, both India and China are pitted against each other, and a lot of comparisons happen on the front of efficiency, production, design, availability, supply chain, and overall production scale. Now, China is typically known to first create infrastructure, then skill the people, and then look for orders, typically in those ways. Now, you're someone who's into both domestic and exports, and has really seen it firsthand. Now, with Make in India really coming up, you really think all of that changing? And what does it do to the overall Indian manufacturing sector? Because also there's been a very strong comment that's been coming in, is that India ought to be a good manufacturing hub. The manufacturing needs to go up. Efficiency needs to go up. It really doesn't matter whether the domestic consumption is going to go up or most of it is going to be used for the exports. Really doesn't matter. What are your thoughts on all of this really, collating in a certain sense?
Well, first of all, what we have to understand is that Make in India is actually, it should deal with Make in India, not invest in India. That's where the key difference is. You talk about Make in India, and the only thing you're talking about is how many people are coming inside and investing. Nowhere is there any talk of somebody from the country having that facility or that environment or that infrastructure to actually go out and translate that. It's got nothing to do with domestic manufacturers. Secondly, as she rightly said, there is no technological import which comes with it. You've seen with Airbuses and everything, they come, they set up their bases, they translate it, they just manufacture, and the technology transfer is never there. So the country doesn't gain from it. So the investment has to be in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of technology. Then and only then something called Make in India would function. But on the flip side or on the other side, Make in India is definitely a necessity. We've been through all the revolutions, the IT and even the milk revolution for that matter, but we've not gone through the manufacturing revolution. And for any country which has to be sustainable, needs to have a good manufacturing base set up. And that is something which we really, really need. But there are too many legs and too many complexities involved. You've got labor, you've got the government, and you've got the overall attitude of the country towards the manufacturers. Now that is something which has to be taken care of as well.
So, but do you really think that the push is for the real now, in terms of the right noises being made, in terms of action points being talked about?
I guess finally the noise is being made. That's what the first positive thing is. I think from the 70s onward, Indians have been brainwashed to see that, okay, he's a business owner, he's a factory owner, he's the criminal, he's the villain of the movie. You have to fight against him. That is something which has been so deeply entrenched into the Indian psyche. Now something coming up, something comes up and challenges directly that, it's something very, very positive. And we personally believe that definitely somewhere down the line, this is going to have a good payoff.
Okay, lovely. So let's understand and try to take a insight into another perspective of Make in India. We've spoken about manufacturing, we've spoken about product, we've spoken about brand part of it. But my common question to Mr. Gupta and Mohini would be that what is the takeaway as far as Make in India is concerned for the retail part of it, for the retail sector and consumers at large? What is it that we need to understand and decipher out of Make in India? Is there a takeaway for the retail and the consumers per se? Is there anything that appeals to this entire Make in India concept?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
If I interpret your question in this way, that there is the concept of Make in India and how does Indian retail take from it? So I think in part that question of how can I get my product at a lower cost? For example, we all know that product prices increase because productivity of labor in India is lower than outside. So I think one of the biggest things for Make in India to be successful is the fact that you need a good base of entrepreneurship to come up in this country. And I think one of the examples to learn from for the rest of the retail industry is actually the e-commerce world. Though a lot of brand owners don't like the e-commerce world too much. But I have to say that what the e-commerce world, what the IT world has done is that it's democratized the opportunity for anybody. Whether you may be educated, you may not be, you may be from a rich family, industrious family, you may not be. It's democratized the fact that you can tomorrow stand up and say that if I have a good product and I believe that I can solve a problem for a customer, I can make my services available. So I think entrepreneurship for me is very important, that if you have a Make in India concept which you want to popularize on the basis of profitability and success and a good business running, that you need to have a pool of entrepreneurs today who can use technology, availability, low cost, not low cost, but lower cost of product which is related to not necessarily a high cost of labor productivity. So I think the important thing here is that entrepreneurship must be supported. One of the things that I feel very strongly about is forums like this. Yes, we have one India Shoes and Accessories forum. I think it's very critical that a lot of youngsters, I'm probably the youngest in this forum in terms of the age of the brand, not otherwise chronologically. But I think we must be supportive of people who are trying new things, even if they fail. There may be a couple of people who have a good idea, worked for 2 years, and the idea realized it wasn't really, the business plan wasn't really great, and they fail. I think that's okay. I think we must support them. And over a period of time, if it means that at the end of 3 or 4 years, they're able to come out with a good business plan, more power to them, more power to Indian retail. I think failure should be encouraged, and I always say that if you have to fail, fail fast. Don't fail later.
All right, Mr. Gupta. So Make in India and then Made in India products going to be liked by the customers at Hello 10. What's your thought?
Until 1991, Indian market was a closed market for foreign manufacturers and foreign brands. And since then, in the last 24 years, if you look at the share of foreign products and foreign brands, especially if you look at footwear, from 0%, the share of foreign products has gone up to about 30%, and it is expected to go up further in next 5 years to about 50% in the organized space. Now, having said that, if you look at probably the availability of product which are made in India or made outside India, most of the foreign brands are producing products outside India and bringing them India. So what is it doing for the country? Now the vision of the present government is that to make India self-sufficient as far as consumer products are concerned, which are labor intensive and which does not involve high technology. Product like footwear and several other FMCG products, even mobile phone, computers, can be made in India. Now, if they can be made in India, why we are not producing them in India? Now, any company, let us say we are based in Haryana, so if our market is Chennai, we would definitely go to Chennai, produce products there and sell in Chennai. So any foreign company who wants to probably sell in Indian market, they have to set up their manufacturing units closer to the market. That is how they can probably bring in efficiency to their business. But actually it is not happening because the Indian environment is not conducive to manufacturing, whether it is Indian manufacturing or maybe foreign manufacturing. As a vision, it is a very good vision, but we all have to work together to realize this vision so that we can make India self-sufficient as far as products are concerned, so that the costs are brought down for the benefit of the consumer.
So Yash, you're someone who holds key to a lot of licensee business and possibly in a position to get some more Indian brands into the country and hopefully make it big. Assuming that we're going to come over some of the constraints that we have, thanks to Make in India and Digital India, and there's going to be a change of mindset going forward, and hopefully good amount of technology transfer, which is so very important, typically from the overall structured growth that we're really wanting, a structured shape to the retail industry as it is, we're looking at it, because the share of the unorganized sector has been very, very high. You really, think that going forward, there could be opportunities for those licensee partners who align with you to actually make in India.
Absolutely. Vikas, yeah. So absolutely, I think, so basically I agree completely with Rafiq Bhai and that kind of concept, that there is a lot of energy around this Make in India initiative. In fact, I could say I could have personally benefited from this Make in India energy, and many brand partners have been keen to partner with us primarily because they are aware that there is a Make in India program. They are aware that India is an emerging destination, not only for producing, but also as a market. In fact, Sonita may know, in London, Heathrow right now, the entire Heathrow airport is blanketed by Make in India advertisements. So there's a lot of energy which we can harness, and it is often easier to transfer, fashion technology, which is easier, not very capital intensive, brands, intellectual property within India. What we really need is an enabling environment, as Rafiq Bhai had pointed out, and I believe it starts from taxation. Taxation is an issue which needs to be fixed. For example, my pet peeve is the import duty on non-leather materials, which is at 30%. Almost all manufacturers in India manufacture their leather shoes within India, but import the non-leather items. Why does India have a 30% import duty on all non-leather materials? Things such as this, taxation incentives need to drive to incentivize entrepreneurs to physically make in India. Our company, we have been manufacturing wallets, bags, belts for 30 years in India very successfully. Where we're now feeling the roadblock is getting into non-leather items. We feel that India is just not viable for non-leather items. And since the panel, everyone feels that the accessories and shoes business is moving to a more fashion-oriented setup, the government really needs to sort of simplify, reduce taxation to Make in India, as well as reduce import duty. These things I feel will really help all of us make in India.
Yeah. So Mr. Nissan, just taking the whole query forward with you, you're someone who works very closely with your principals. The brand is sold over 100 countries. Does it really, this thought ever strikes you in the current context with Make in India now anyways happening, that you could be in a situation or a position to really have a decent amount of stocks coming in a knockdown condition from overseas here into India, and you really, really bundling it together here in India? What it does is two things. A, hopefully lower the prices, although you have a certain positioning without diluting the brand equity. But secondly, as a multinational brand who's been operating in the country for so long, giving something back to the country in terms of employment, in terms of resources, in terms of technology. You think steps like those are also on the cards someday down the line?
I think that's a big ask to say give back to the country like we don't. But, here's the thing. I think we're trying to play baseball, and we're not good at baseball. And we say, Make in India, we want to play baseball with you guys. Instead of saying, hey, let's change the game and get all the games to be cricket here, right? So I don't think we're competing smart when it comes to Make in India. I don't think we're playing to our strengths. I don't think we are protecting the baby when we treat multinational companies like Nestle the way we did. We're not protecting that baby of Make in India. when we tax, as many people have said, the crap out of everything that comes in, we're not protecting Make in India. You don't protect things to make them grow. You don't tax your way into prosperity. You don't tax your way into innovation, right? So the concept is not, well, am I going to ever break down products so we can get around the law? No, we're not. We're going to keep a high standard of production. We're going to bring it in the way we should bring it in as a brand. We need to assure the quality. We're not going to play the games to go around the taxes, right? But I think at the same point, there is a lot of infrastructure needs. There's a lot of things that need to be done. Listen, 41% of India lives under $1 a day, 42% under 100 rupees a day, 42% lives under 200 rupees a day. We got a long way to go to mobilize them. So it's an uphill task, and I think we can all be critical of every effort, and we can be, great Monday morning quarterbacks and say this is right, that isn't right. But at the end of the day, I think we got to start somewhere. But let's not try to play in a field where we're not successful. Let's play to our strengths. And I don't think we've identified this is our strength, this is what we're going to go after, and get after it with a solid plan that protects it and nurtures it and encourages it.
Thank you so much. Good to learn about hockey and baseball both, actually. Okay. Now, Sanyogita, where does the fashion and retail typically, move from here? From the academic point of view, from the student fraternity point of view, what is the kind of aura that do they carry in their thought process in terms of fashion, retail, all of that really making big in India? What are the thoughts that they carry?
So I think Make in India can't be a success unless you actually mobilize students to start becoming entrepreneurs. Someone mentioned entrepreneurship. We're talking about making in India, playing to our strengths. I think India is a very creative country. I think we have a student power which is really strong. Creativity is really high. We have natural resources which can be used to make in India a huge success. And I think it'll happen only if I think we mobilize students to start becoming entrepreneurs. We open up courses for them which help them to kind of come out and take part, produce and manufacture and design these new products. I think if 2-3 institutes start, say, footwear design, and we work with the industry and say, okay, this is what we would like to do, and we co-create with the industry courses, I think Make in India can be a huge success. I think the problem here is industry works on their own, and academia works on its own. I don't think we ever come together for a common cause. And I think if there are forums where actually academia works with industry and we actually talk about common products, common things that we would like to do in the next 5-10 years, and we work about co-creating curriculum, co-creating courses, co-creating resources, I think we'll have a great country. I think then Make in India would be a huge success.
So Sanyogita talked about a very important triangle of sorts in terms of collaboration, and this is an era of collaboration in which ways. Mr. Peduboy, here is a situation wherein you have academic institutions, whole of corporate, the industry, and specialist people like you. Is that going to be the pitch forward, the way forward in terms of how you're going to be promoting the kind of concepts that you're here to offer to India?
But promoting the concept, it's really believing, there was 1 month ago in Paris, as I said previously, there was a conference about Make in India, and as I said clearly to the ambassador, it's not about Make in India, it's Make and Design in India. And I would imagine in the next 10 years, designing, and I don't say we will transfer everything to one country. Probably in 20 years' time, Make in India, in France, in the US, will not mean anything. It will be made on planet Earth, probably, and that's why we're doing like Wolverine. They are now implementing our solution worldwide. That means between China, the US, and India, and it will be roll out here in India, they are completely digital, they are completely virtual. So I think if in India play the card right and all the comments we are there were exact. And also something I'd like to add, in terms of the footwear industry. I was in Kanpur 2 days ago, and the president of Suri told me that we sold, as I said, software to VKC, and he told me all the people on the design team of VKC, they're not from the software industry, the footwear industry. They're coming from the IT sector. So what I'm saying here, you have to bring new idea. The young people, they will rock the boat. They will come up with new concepts. They will come up with new ideas. And that's a way that you could meet the demand, the requirement of the new generation. We're just furnishing the tool. The young generation, they will probably challenge us, tell us, hey, go retire because we are coming up with a new generation of software. But as we say in French, c'est la vie. Hein?
Right. So Mr. Singh, here is a situation again wherein talking of Make in India, Digital India, industry hopefully should by and large also be open to accepting the technology layers. But what's been your experience when you reach out to the industry in terms of they really adding functionalities to this entire spectrum to make the whole thing a 360-degree success story? What's been your understanding?
Mr. Adarsh told us that the industry is and said like the people are going into the losses. What I'm expecting this year or early next year, so this marketplace, the brand houses, EBOs and MBOs are going to be integrated. So whatever the orders are received online, those will be, say, passed on to the retailers, the respective areas. So the delivery may, say, the very same day or the next day, or the next morning, so which on the lower cost, delivery at the lower cost, which make the sense. But there is the problem, say, like now, the retailer is now, what he's doing, he's unpacking the product and displaying the products and selling it. Now he needs to be trained on how to pick up the products, pack and ship, right? So this is what I'm looking at, and it is a game changer. It is going to change it. So the whole industry, the retailer is also making money, marketplace is making money, the companies are making money. I think that will make the sense to the business.
So here is it. The industry has a point of view. The government has a bigger picture in mind. And the stakeholders, all of you put together in this room, have a very, very clear thought process. Everybody wants all these key programs to succeed for very many reasons. Which also means that all of the people sitting on the stage must be having a wish list of sorts because they know the agenda, they know the pain points. So let's hear it from them that would be featuring in their own wish list. And I would then request maybe Amit, ISF, maybe to take a note of it and then pass it on to the authorities at an opportune time. So let me pick up the sequence in which I'm going to be asking about the wish list. Mr. Musafir, first of you, what would be wish list on your part? What is that you like to convey?
I've had the same wish list for 20 years. I wish the government rationalizes taxation on footwear. It gives us a level playing field and encourages industrialization in India. And unless that happens, to be honest, it's a no-win sort of a battle, and we will be forced to become traders and not manufacturers unless there is a level playing field. And in terms of taxation, footwear is taxed at the highest level. Again, I say the same thing, and that needs to change in India for sure. So that's my wish list.
And is it looking more probable than ever before? You've been fighting for this cause for quite some time along with others.
We are being more vocal than before,
okay.
So I don't know if we
so hopefully vocal should
get heard. I don't think there are any government officials in this audience. So
even if they are, they'll appreciate you, not a problem. Okay, Mr. Malik, your thoughts, your wish list, what would you like to tell the audience?
We are staying at a time which is changing very, very fast. So I think it will be most important for the government to create an enabling environment that, minimizes all hurdles, whether it's interstate tax, logistics, and everything that comes in the way of smooth commerce. An enabling environment would make things much easier for everybody.
Okay, Swanita, you have very strong views on the counterfeit stuff which gets into the country, but what would you, I will not put words in the mouth, what would be your wish list actually?
I think as an international brand selling into India, I wish other retailers would follow what Mr. Malik has done and invested in logistics and the software to help provide us with sell-through data. I think that way we can look at the country, look at what the needs are, and I think what they're doing in the metro stores is great. And as a brand sending into other retailers, I wish they would follow suit.
All right. Ishan, you operate in multiple sectors. So what was going to be your wish list now, the key wish list?
I guess most of the most important wish lists have already been covered. Rationalization of taxes, I agree, it's not just the manufacturing front, but also the confusion of treating each state as separate, but we are just one country. if suppose I manufacture in UP, I have my distribution office in Maharashtra, my customer is in, let us say, Gujarat, and I have to dispatch the product, which VAT should I pay? So, and how many types of taxes and how many times I have to pay the tax? So that sort of a clarification we need, to be much more conducive. And logistics, of course. Now that is a pain point which has been bothering us for years. It's easier to ship to London than it is to ship to Mumbai. So these sort of things come in the way of efficiency, come in the way of sell-through as well, and it is really, really painful for us.
All right. So Yogita, you deal with the most robust part of the industry, the upcoming designers and the likes, the student fraternity who should be, oozing with energy. So what would be your wish list on their behalf, let's say?
I think the industry has to work with academics. I don't think industry will be able to survive much longer if they don't actually partner academics, because unless the two work together, you're not going to get the talent that you actually need. And what's happening today, academics does their own thing, industry looks for something else, we think we're working together, and I think there are gaps which are actually happening because of this and I'm saying working together, I'm not just saying come and give a guest lecture, I'm saying actually work to co-create. So if there is a niche which you see coming up, like a footwear is now going to be the next big thing, why can't industry work with academics and say, why don't we create a curriculum in footwear design? I think we're going to miss a lot of opportunities if we don't work together on certain things that the industry is seeing happening.
All right. Rajesh, for you, is it going to be operating or working on newer categories, enhancing the ASPs, lowering the discounts? What is going to be for you?
Well, I think on that side, I would love to have consumption per capita wise should go up. But apart from that, I have a wish, young entrepreneurs should have easy access to working capital, which I am not seeing it's really available at this point of time. On the other side, I see we're in a very super excited ecosystem where young people are coming up with a lot of problem solving ideas, whether it's anything. I mean, Mr. Gupta talked about giving an analogy of Uber or Ola. If we have to talk about today, somebody want to open up a brick and mortar brand, how many people or institute is willing to give them fund? That is not there. Within exclusively, like we see every day, so many young designers or brands are coming, and that's exactly we give a platform to them. But still, people die with their excellent idea because there is no working capital. Yes, I mean, MSME schemes or other things are there on paper, but if you go and try it, how many people have access to that kind of fund? That is not there.
All right. Mr. Gupta, your wish list, especially for the investors and the franchisees, I guess.
In my view, we should, I think, understand the markets worldwide are under correction. Prices of all the products, oil and gas, metals, commodities, real estate, consumer products are falling. So in other words, if you look at Indian market, if the prices are falling, consumer has probably better purchasing power. So in the same 1,000 rupees, he can buy more product. So, which is increasing the consumption. So if the consumption continue to increase in the future, I think we are going to see better times in the future. There are a lot of talent now with the government, and government is acting it, is putting its act together. And I think ease of doing business and growing the economy, the government is doing it very well. So we are going to see the results in the next 2-3 years. So therefore, I do not have any wish list, because whatever is being asked by the industry, the government is already have started doing it, and it starts showing results.
All right. Mohini, your brand stands for passion. So what's your passionate wish list?
I have actually quite a few things to say, so I'm going to say it really fast. So the first thing that I believe in is that I'm not trying to sound nationalistic here, but I do believe that all of us who are a part of India have to start believing that we can make international quality products. I think consistently, wherever you go, whether you meet with a mall developer, you meet with a brand, and they'll say, oh, we're an international brand. And I think there's almost, there's nothing wrong in it, because they're obviously not from this country, perhaps, outside. But I think there is almost a sense of demarcation between the fact, oh, you're an Indian brand, and I am an international brand, and that means something. And I think at the end of the day, what it should really mean is quality at the end of the day. So I think if I had to ask for something, I would say that how can the environment enable brands which emanate, which start from India, are able to make quality products which are capable of being sold internationally. Now, whether that means working with academia, whether it means taxation, whether it means access to cheaper working capital cost, I would put everything there. So for me, the biggest thing is that we have to believe that we are capable of, we are international. We operate in an international environment. We're just not an Indian brand. We're an international country. So for me, that's very strong. The other thing that I strongly believe in, because I operate primarily in retail, is that I think there's a lot of collaboration which is lacking, perhaps between brands and real estate owners. And real estate owners, I'm going to say perhaps key accounts or large format stores. I think there is mall developers. Sometimes I have experienced a sense of landlordship. We are landowners and you pay me rent. I think the sense of collaboration comes from the fact that if you are in a catchment where perhaps F&B is really important, let F&B go to the ground floor. Or you're in a catchment perhaps where movies or youngsters are available in large numbers. Let that kind of environment be available on the ground floor. Or for example, that you have a great set of brands which cater to children or to women or to men in the premium segment. Let them all come together and let them, perhaps have a common rental or for some, a revenue share, a rental come revenue share model. So I think there lies a big scope of opportunity in the retail side.
All right. So Yash, the licensor in you, what does he have as a wish list?
Quite a few things, but Mohini's covered many of those. Essentially, I feel that we're all doing yeoman service here. Shoes and accessories provides employment to really the poorest of India. You have smartphone manufacturing, you have automobile manufacturing, you have various forms of manufacturing. But I feel really the shoes and accessories manufacturers, the karigars, they really need help. I believe India should recognize that we are building and providing employment to the base, to the base of India. From that perspective, we are being taxed out of business. Rationalization of taxes, the point everyone has mentioned, the enabling environment, which Rafiq Bhai has mentioned multiple times. My wish list specifically would be to eliminate or reduce taxes on raw materials. That is unheard of, especially non-leather raw materials. Everyone is moving towards fashion. India is not a destination for fashion manufacturing and accessories, primarily because there is a 30% import duty. And India will remain a manufacturing destination for leather accessories, for leather shoes. But for non-leather, highly fashionable shoes, sports shoes, India is lagging behind. And so my wish list would be the removal of taxes on raw material, non-leather raw material.
Mr. Pettyboy, what could be your wish list in terms of taking the grip of the market? What is that you like to do or ask for or look at?
Obviously improve, the number of, the youngster moving to the footwear industry, trying to attract designers for all over the world, helping, because you have to be honest, there is a lack of designer in India. And I think, and also make your embassy, your people aware of the footwear, the fashion industry in India. Because at this last meeting in Paris, the organizer came to see me, oh yeah, your talk really impressed the ambassador. And I said, well, okay, it's fine, it's impressed, but I'm talking about this country, and okay, if airplane, Airbus or cars, that's okay. I think the leather industry should really push into, because the vision we have in France or in Europe, for India, it's not really fashion, and I think it's a pity, honestly. Your political people should really emphasize the great future that if you play the card right, you have here. It's
all right.
It's my point of view.
Mr. Singh, quickly from you, your wish list.
I would like to also talk about the taxes. say initially first.
Yeah.
Because the taxes, say in our industry also, they are putting the VAT also and the service tax also. I don't understand whether they should consider it as a service or a product. So the state government is putting the, say, the VAT also, and the central government is putting the service tax also.
Thank you so much.
So today, which I read in the paper, it's like 10% is the entry tax, right, for the, like the Flipkart and the other people in the Uttarakhand and other things. So that's really bad. Say, like, it should not be done. Say, it is not the pro to the industry. But if there is a way out also, if people start working integrated with all the retailers, so then the hyper-location base, so no need to ship from the other states. So it can be done. So this problem can be solved to the entry tax.
Thank you so much. Last 30 seconds to Mr. Malik. Your message to the industry. Here is a heterogeneous set of stakeholders coming from different various backgrounds, in some way connected to the footwear industry. What could be your message to the industry at large? 30 seconds for you, sir.
I think it's an exciting industry. There are very promising times ahead. It is complex, it is difficult, it's challenging. It's also something that you get very passionate about because the challenges it presents. So please, however difficult it may sound, take a jump in it. There are exciting time ahead, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.